was arrested outside the beaches of Copacabana. I was standing on the corner. I was waiting for a friend that was making a phone call. And I was going to leave that day. I was going to go to Argentina, which I was in Argentina prior. And I seen helicopters above, which they usually stay on the shoreline. They don't go near the buildings. I seen it got real quiet. I looked around. I seen Interpol coming down after me. I seen the army, military, police coming after me. I looked up and down each block, and it was just cold, quiet.
What do you consider to be the biggest crime? How far would you go for money? What are gangsters made of?
Yeah, and and I thought about that sometimes, and I thought about, well, if that's what I think they're going to do, then, I'll kill him too.
I was in Daytona Beach, Florida with Vinny Correo and a couple of his guys. Vinny got a phone call from John Gotti Jr., that John A. was arrested.
And I says, my friend, send their regards, and I shot him in the head.
He did work, but his reputation preceded him. That was for sure. But you would never know it by meeting him.
I'm going to have a lot of family and friends over. I'm doing a catering at my house. And I'm making this Christmas one of the most special ones this year. Financially, I'm doing a lot better for myself than I was when I first came back out of prison. I didn't have the money that I was accustomed to. And as things are progressing and I'm moving forward financially also. I'm making good money again. So it's going to be a good Christmas again, what I'm used to.
I asked him if he believed in Santa Claus.
I believe in Santa Claus.
But what I really wanted to know was if he believed in God.
I believe there's a higher being. I'm not sure what that is. I believe in faith, and I believe in a superior being, and I hope there is a God, and I believe in both God, Santa Claus, and all the good things.
What would make a violent gangster say this?
Your book is a bestseller in Albania.
I've been told that. I'm anxious to see a copy in Albania. It would be a kick to see it. I could see why it would be, because John's a charismatic figure. John's an Albanian American, and I think there's always a fascination with the American mafia, no matter what country we're talking about.
Don't expect me to judge gangsters. I want to know them. What can make some of them special? You may wonder if this is a case study, an investigation, Or a gangster's confessions? Well, it's all of the above. I found him to be perfect for this. My name is Will Parker. I'm an Englishman, and I'm in New York. For some people, this city is the Statue of Liberty, Wall Street, 9/11, Donald Trump, Fifth Avenue, and more. For me, New York is the city where most gangster stories happened in films. On the streets in the 80s, the drug business was huge. There was lots of money to be made. Movies picked up on that. And gangsters were the real stars. How can I define a real gangster? Who could be the perfect example today? Does a mobster fall into that definition?
You know what? I don't look at made guys as perfect gangsters. I look at them as perfect fools.
The gangsters of the 80s, there were a tremendous amount of guys that were very capable.
So what does make you a gangster?
Being around the right people, doing crime, trying, of course, not getting caught.
A gangster is somebody who operates outside the law. It's Billy the Kid was a gangster in the American West. Jesse James was a gangster. And more recently, it's Al Capone. It's somebody who operates outside the law and who makes money doing that. It's in a lot of ways, it's a business.
Is there rules?
There are rules, but they're constantly changing, and the rules depend on who's in power and who's got the gun. So there are rules and there are other rules. It depends on what day of the week it is and who's on top of the pile. So there's not one set of rules for gangsters.
George Anastasia reported on the mob for decades. His latest book had John Alite as the main character, a gangster operating in the 80s and mid-90s. Those were the years of big change for the mob. The public was looking at these men with curiosity, and then came the downfall. Everything was being exposed. Everything was changing for good. Rival wars, members giving up on other members. John Alite, according to that book, participated in that process. He was one of the last ones to take the stand. How come he's out of prison? And above all, alive.
I believe I'm alive for a reason. I say that all the time. And when I was in jail, I didn't understand that. But over the years, a lot of people tried to take my life. A lot of people shot at me and missed. Guys clicked guns in front of my face and they just jumped the chamber. So some of those things I never got thought about until I got to this position. And I said, somebody has a reason that's keeping me alive. Well, there were several occasions, but one of them was guys we bought drugs from, we bought cocaine from, and we put fake money in. And we bought about 4 kilos of coke at the time. Maybe 3 weeks later, they found out the money was counterfeit, and I was walking home off where I live in Jamaica Avenue. There were sitting 2 guys with automatic weapons. I walked up the block and they opened up fire on me. So I started running. I was laughing to myself because the adrenaline was running so fast in me. All I hear was gunshots and everything around me was getting hit. Cars, windows, apartment building, brick walls, and nothing's hitting me. And as I got away, I laughed and I said, how the fuck do these guys miss me?
And that was not the only time, according to John. You would wonder if he retaliated.
Yeah, I went after them. Yeah, I went after a couple of them, and what we do is, the same thing. We go, somebody tries to kill you, you go try to kill them or shoot them or intimidate them to not come back after you. In that case, yeah, we caught one of them and we shot him, baseball bat him, but didn't kill him.
That was Vinny, a fat guy from the area. Vinny had to leave town for good.
Those days, nobody went to the police. It was a different era. No cameras. People didn't believe in going to the police. It was more, the street stays to the street for the most part. I mean, people randomly did, but overall, not like today. I mean, these were regular, everyday things, though. This is not like an unusual event for me. I mean, we just, the next day, we try to find out who's doing it and what's doing it and go try to kill them.
That was life in Death Haven. Woodhaven was named Death Haven for the numerous crimes and all the violence. The streets were dangerous, and death was a way out.
Did you know Bruce?
I grew up with Brucey about 14, and I feel like I betrayed him.
Okay, who's behind the killing?
John Alite, not John Jr.
Whatever John had told you, how many people he murdered or involved with it, my opinion, I'll give you my opinion, double it.
He's not suspicious looking. That's when I picked up the book. And I looked at these pictures. I said, who the hell is this guy?
I think John's story from beginning to end is right on point, and if you read it, that's what you're going to come away with. This is not what Mario Puzo makes it out to be, or Francis Ford Coppola makes it out to be. You know, the Godfather book, the Godfather movies, wonderful cinema, but it's not reality.
Most gangsters were shot or locked up, and only some lived to tell a story.
Goodfellas is Robert De Niro's portraying Jimmy Burke.
Remember Goodfellas? Henry Hill, Jimmy Burke? John Alite met those men. They used to operate right here. In Goodfellas, Henry Hill pointed out Jimmy Burke as the man behind the Lufthansa heist and as someone to be feared.
And I kind of like what he was about as a gangster, because he was a guy that got his hands dirty, did killings. But, you know, they portray him in the movie as being a wild man animal, and I don't really think that's as accurate as he was a gentleman until you screwed him. Yep. You screwed him, he kind of did what I learned to do. When someone screws you in the street, there is no being a nice guy to him. He was a nice guy in general to the public, but on the street, he was a gangster. And that means if another gangster got in his way, he would kill him. And if somebody screwed him over, he would kill him.
Alite used to hang around with Frankie Burke, Jimmy's son.
Jimmy Burke from prison asked Frankie to take care of a piece of work for him. There was a lot of money owed to him. And the way Frankie brought it to me was a collection that we were gonna go handle with some Spanish guys. And 3 guys showed up. We ended up killing 2 of them on this corner. They met us here, got a little heated, the discussion, and I took out a gun, I shot one of them, Frankie started shooting, we started shooting both of them, and we left them where they said. I'm not sure, as you know, back in those days I didn't think about it much, but I think the 3rd guy was actually setting them up for us to kill.
So, it sounds like you have a lot of similarities to the Burkes.
In that life, yeah, in that life, I mean, because I understood I'm Albanian, and just like him, I understood we had what kind of power we controlled on the street. And he's Irish, and he was in the same manner. He was a guy that I would look up to. Guys would talk to me about being like him, and I would hear it a lot. So, you know, if I had to look up to and say that I followed certain gangsters, I'd say that the Burke family was definitely my type of family to follow, not the Gottis. When you talk about Lufthansa heist, which was a very famous Kennedy airport heist at the airport that they stole millions, it was probably, in those days, it was the biggest heist ever. And there was no relation to John Gotti there. Jimmy Burke didn't pay homage to anybody but to Jimmy Burke and to his own crew.
From the 80s, John Alite worked for Gotti. Later, this young gangster would see the decline of America's most notorious crime organization. The FBI brought down an empire built on illegal activities.
When you're concentrating a number of resources, individuals from different families, you're going to find things that utilizing weaponry we never had before, such as electronic overhears, such as other technical equipment that we were able to use to gain insight into the behaviors and actions of members of organized crime. I think this did much to change the mentality of those who did not see their futures as enjoyable in a small jail cell for the remainder of their life.
I can't help but think of John Gotti, the Dapper Don, one of the most notorious gangsters of our time. Gotti was stylish, good-looking, a smooth talker. They don't make that kind of gangster anymore. He definitely had charisma and leadership. He took over the Gambino family after the killing of Paul Castellano. According to Sammy Gravano, the hit was ordered by Gotti, who later died in prison. Today, Sammy Gravano, Frank Lucchesio, and most of the guys from that regime are either locked up, in prison, or dead. And with the Don gone, the era of the Gambinos came to an end.
John Gotti Sr., a different ball game altogether. John Gotti Sr. was the epitome of a gangster, the perfect mobster. That was a man that had no fear. That was a man that was feared by everybody, respected by everybody. You know, he's put it right out there. He didn't care that anybody knew what he was.
You know, he dressed impeccably. He looked the part. He was the part. He was the quintessential gangster.
He was respected by everybody. Everybody liked him, you know, maybe even like a cop, for instance. You know, they're not supposed to like thugs, they liked him. They respected him.
Any gangster you admired back in time?
Honestly, yeah, I did. John Gotti Jr. At that time, I idolized him.
What about his father?
Oh, of course, I idolized him too at one time. At one time, I wanted to be just, all of us kids wanted to be just like them. They were like the president.
How people would look up to him back in time?
As the boss. I mean, especially when he became the boss. The main guys, yeah, and the captains, but even we felt we had the power because we were with you, and you're one of John Gotti's guys.
What's your idea of, like, the perfect gangster?
My guy, the one I loved the most, was Gaspipe, Anthony.
Yeah.
You know, Anthony wasn't as flamboyant as John. John liked to be filmed, he liked to be on TV.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they were two different people. Gaspipe was an actual killer.
Yeah.
You know, John wasn't. You know, but John was a tough guy, yes.
I think Gotti Sr. understood the life. I think he abused the life. And I would never say, is he a gangster by some people's definition? By my definition, no. Was he a tough guy, street guy? Yeah. Was he capable of doing things himself? Yeah, he never did them, though.
These are not men of respect. There's no respect they're entitled to. They are thugs. They leave victims in their wake wherever they go. And for Hollywood, for television, for journalists, and for others, especially young folks, to somehow ascribe a certain level of admiration for this lifestyle, that lifestyle is short-lived.
Why is there such admiration for gangster films and that lifestyle?
The Americans are fascinated by the whole gangster aura, the clothes, the lifestyle. If you could make a quality gangster movie every week, you would do fine.
Americans have always been fascinated with the outlaw. Whether it's Billy the Kid, Jesse James, John Dillinger, Bonnie and Clyde, there's something in the American psyche that is drawn to the rogue and the outlaw. And I think Mario Puzo, Francis Ford Coppola, Martin Scorsese, who are geniuses at what they do, tapped into that when they created this whole organized crime genre in cinema and books.
The time of real gangsters seemed to have come to an end. But maybe something remained. I needed to go places with John Alite and get a feel for the streets. Probably, John was a different person after all. If John's life was a subway line, the correctional facility stop had to be the destination. The journey started back in Woodhaven.
So this is the first time that people shot at you?
Well, one of the first times they tried to hit me here, I was walking up this way, coming back to my house, and a Lincoln Town car jumped the curb with two guys, and they started shooting at me. I ran behind this memorial stone and followed my way up where this fence is. The fence never used to be there. And I ran behind this fence, over some houses, through the backyards, to my house to get a gun. When the guys that tried to do that, those guys are dead. I killed those guys. This was my house. I went from these backyards all kiss up to each other. So I went from the other block through the backyard through the basement, and where I had a lot of guns. Grabbed some guns. I jumped in one of my cars, and I tried to shoot back down there, catch him. I didn't catch him then. I catch him later on, and that's when, you know, once they did something like that, they're gonna get killed, which I did kill him.
But what's the motive for killing somebody? And can that ever be justified? I don't know that you can ever, morally, I don't know if I could ever say, yeah, there's a reason to kill somebody. But if you can create the world in which somebody's operating, and all the dynamics of who the people are, the interactions, and then you can create, I think, a world where somebody could say, well, I understand why you did that.
Those were times where Alite was still involved with crime, but probably had already started to realize he had to make a move and leave the streets for a regular life.
He pled guilty to and acknowledged a dozen murders that he participated in either directly or planning or conspired to commit. Grasso was one of them.
They were guys that stayed with us, and we had a disagreement, and the disagreement just kept escalating, and we went back and forth with each other, and it was a power thing in the neighborhood where I come from. And I was walking home again. My house was off a dead-end street, and I was in front of a monument, in front of a bank, which is made out of marble, and they jumped the curb and started shooting at me. I ran behind that marble, and I took off behind the bushes into another block and jumped some fences, and they missed me. They took 2 or 3 shots only at me. And then I made sure after that I killed those guys.
We all used to hang out at the pool hall. It was down the block from the Jägermeisters.
Okay.
On Jamaica Avenue. You know, Alite started putting drugs in all the bars in the neighborhood.
What time? What year? You have an idea?
85.
John had already become a drug dealer in the 80s. There were other drug dealers operating in the area, trying to score. They were people that used to hang out with John. They tried to kill him and ended up getting killed. He told us how that happened.
They come and try and shoot you?
Well, I talked to a guy from the neighborhood, and these 5 guys were, they had problems with us over the drug business, and they were trying to take over some of my locations. And they had a meeting up in the park by where we live, which we call it Forest Park. And they talked about hitting me and killing me. So they sent these 2 guys out of the 5 to try to hit me. Once they tried to hit me and missed, I knew I had to kill all of them. So I picked them all off one at a time. I started killing them. And it was either me kill them or I knew they were going to try to kill me again.
He killed Georgie Grasso and threw him on the side of the Grand Central Parkway. Now it turns out later on that was one of the murders that Alite actually committed.
The man was a dangerous man. He was an evil man. And it wasn't just easy just to kill the guy, you know.
How soon after them attempting to kill you did you manage to get rid of them?
I got them one at a time. So the first guy, I believe I got about a couple months after, maybe a month after, 2 months after I got him. We killed him. The second guy, I killed him about 6 months after that. The third guy, I killed maybe a week or 2 after that. And the last guy, it took us a couple years, he took off. And we got him and killed him after that.
So to some that might sound, to me that sounds like a lot of time. But was that? Did it feel like a lot of time? Did you have any encounters with them before you managed to kill them?
No, you know, in the street, you got to learn patience. And, you know, you learn patience through the street, through jail. And they're not the only guys who are killing. You know, there's other things going on that I'm killing other guys also. I'm shooting other guys. So they're just part of the rest of the business that I'm doing. It's just when I catch up to them, just be smart. And while I send guys to do my scouting, I guess you would say, looking about, telling me where they go, what time they go, who they stay with, and you know, and I kill them at a convenience, really, at a leisure, because I know they're trying to kill me, so I'm careful. And there's there's a ton of guys trying to kill me at the time, so it's not like these guys are the only ones. It's not like you're gonna panic because somebody's trying to kill you. You're just gonna take them out.
You'd have to have a film that ran for like 12 hours to tell the whole story. What you have to focus on is the character, the individual, and the ups and downs of his life and where he began and where he ended and how he got to where he is.
Okay, well, when you're driving, right? Are you gonna move the car? Are they moving?
Yes, they are moving.
Okay. When you're driving, you're gonna stick your left hand out with your gun, and you're gonna start shooting at me.
Okay.
And then once you make that left,
John had probably done violent things before, but this event was the turning point for him. there was no turning back. Remember, he was showing us where that really happened.
He's kind of scared. They're brother-in-laws, so you know. So you guys both died, so you know. So
both?
Yeah, not right then, huh? Yeah. Well, you get it first. One I picked up and drank with him, and he believed that I didn't know he was involved. Or I'm not sure what he really believed, because if it was me, that never would have happened if I was in his shoes. But I believed he thought he was still my friend, that I didn't know he was there. I tricked him into drinking with me, and I took him in a car and I shot him in the head a couple of times.
Shot him in the head? Not once. Later, he would spit on him and ask that the victim's body be exposed. Did anyone witness the shooting?
No, I was with an ex-cop, a detective, Phil Baroni. I was with another cop that became a cop. At the time, he wasn't, Nicky Tobia. I was with the guy, Joey DiCorrali, and another guy, Tommy. And we took him, drank with him in a neighborhood bar. I made them all drink. I just drank shots of water. I told the bartender, make sure you only give me water. And I got him drunk. I got him in the car. I drove him around for a while. Told him we were going to another after hours. And he sat in the front seat. The detective sat next to me. And I shot him in the head. After that, I made the detective and the other guy, Joey, get out of the car and dump him and throw him in the bushes.
You got rid of these, what, 3, 4, 5 guys. What happened after that? Were there more? Were there any repercussions?
No, that was their main. There's other guys, but those were the main guys trying to kill me. Repercussions is what they usually are. You know, just you know, some police looking for you. You know, investigations, and it's just part of the life. So, you know, and that's not even a thought in our minds when you're doing stuff like this. So, it's, you know, really what happened after that. I kept making money.
For the guys in the car, we will not use their real names, but those of the actors. We do know their true identity. That same night, John Alite went to see one of his connections, the son of a mafia boss he met through Eugene. That common mob connection was supposed to monitor a sit-down. Both John and Eugene were Gambino associates. Here they are about to pay a visit to Eugene. Why him first? The discussion between this man and Eugene remains a mystery. But here is what John says happened in the back of that car.
What did you say to him? Do you remember what you said to him?
Yeah, I told him he's full of shit. I said, you're fucking making me look like an idiot. I said, yeah, you're letting this guy get away with it. Let's just fucking kill him. He goes, you ain't killing him until my father says it's okay to kill him. I'll let you kill him. He says, you gotta wait. I go, what are we waiting for? Just kill him. I said, I got him right here. I'll kill him right in front of his fucking house. He said, no, you're gonna listen to what I say. I go, come on, man, you're just worried about money. He's bringing in pennies to you.
Cut!
John finally found Brian, the less threatening of the two. Planned everything together with his friend and killed the man.
I know him since he was a kid, so he was a guy that came from broken family, used drugs a lot, moved around, talked too much, and he talked more than than he had balls. And in the street, I think that's a popular thing. People open their mouth too much and brag. Was always kind of like, you know, I let a guy take a front seat, just reacted when it was time to react.
Why is everyone in the positions that they're in now, and what's the reasoning behind it?
We just left the White Horse Bar. My friend owns that bar, and I had everybody have a couple of drinks to loosen them up, and I was feeding Georgie shots so he wouldn't be aware of too much either. I was trying to get him drunk. Phil, you're gonna turn around and look at me, and you're gonna say to me, give me the gun. And I'm gonna tell you no. And then you're gonna reach over around the right-hand side of that, and you're gonna hit him twice in the head. Yep. Once you hit him twice in the head, you're gonna hesitate about a second, and then you're gonna spit on him. And then everybody's quiet, and then I say, with a joke, why is everybody so quiet? Come on, we'll go get something to eat. Let's go get rid of him.
So you were happy to just take them all to go and get something to eat in a diner afterwards. You said that you just covered the body with some leaves. There was no, you didn't bury him anywhere. You just dumped him, covered him, threw the gun, went and got some food.
Yeah, we wanted the body in the street, but we wanted it, I didn't want it to be found within a couple hours like it was. I was hoping to be found in a day or two, but that's just not the case. Somebody must have stumbled on the body immediately, and a couple hours later, the body, there was crime scene units all over that, by Jewel Avenue, by Citi Field, which is Shea Stadium. No, it wasn't silenced. It's just a low caliber revolver. I believe it's a 25 caliber, which, the bullets jump around, and once you shoot somebody, they don't exit the body. So it's a good bullet as far as up close range to kill somebody.
And how did everyone else react to this happening inside the car? Was it manic? Like, how did these two guys here react?
Joey, I told him the first thing in the morning, make sure you wake up. I want the car cleaned, and then I want you to get rid of the car.
And what about Phil?
Phil lived up the block, and Phil was actually okay about it. And the next day, Phil met with me, and then a couple of days later after that, Phil told me that one of the other guys that were following us in the car, Tommy, was doing a lot of talking, talking about what happened. So I had to go see him. And Phil came with me. We took a ride to see Tommy to tell him, shut your fucking mouth, stop talking about this to anybody. Somebody asked him, was in Georgia at the bar, and he said, yeah, and he's describing what he wore, and he remembered what color, his clothes didn't match. He was wearing blue and brown and beige or something like that. And I'm saying, how the fuck would you even remember what somebody's wearing? I said, do you remember what I was wearing yesterday? He said, no. I go, why would you remember what he was wearing? And so that was his last warning, to shut up or he'll be next. Yeah, they were dealing drugs with me. They were setting guys up for me. They were loaning money with me. They were shylocking money with me. They were in the sports business with me. So they were an everyday activity of crime with me. So
in a way, they were gangsters as well.
Yeah, the gangsters just with a badge.
So can you say they were working part-time to low and working more?
Yeah, I used to joke about it all the time and say, they're double agents. So, they work on both sides. The only thing is I had them in my pocket, and they did what I told them.
Were you sure they could sell it to the police or to other guys?
Were I sure they would tell the police if they could?
They could do something bad to you?
Yeah, and and I thought about that sometimes, and I thought about, well, if that's what I think they're gonna do, then I'll kill him too.
John finally made his bones. It was time to benefit from all his connections. After all, he was in it for the cash, and there was a lot to be made.
At Mr. Alite's sentencing, the judge was addressing the murders of George Grasso and John Gebert, and she allowed me to speak to those murders, and I informed her that she was only sentencing Mr. Alite rather than Mr. Grasso and Mr. Gebert, is because Mr. Grasso and Mr. Gebert were bad shots, because a week before they were murdered, they attempted to shoot and kill Mr. Alite. The judge then asked the government if that was in fact correct, and the Assistant United States Attorney confirmed in open court that Mr. Grasso and Mr. Gebert did try to kill Mr. Alite prior to Mr. Alite's retaliation.
You're nervous. I'm nervous as shit because I'm saying they're gonna fucking grab it. What the fuck we doing? I'm hot, I'm mad, I'm nervous. You know, when you're driving by, you're like, you know, you just killed a guy fucking 3 hours earlier. He's got me going back there.
Cut. Nick, very good. Justin, very good as well. Can we have a last one? And we're good to go, all right?
One of them's definitely feeling something totally different to the other.
Yeah. Well, you know what he's thinking, right, Gotti? Gotti's thinking, I can't get in trouble for this. I wasn't there. You know, that's what he's thinking.
Yeah.
You know, I know what is exactly on his mind. If they pull me over, I don't know what the fuck he did.
But he's still willing to actually take the credit for...
Yeah, but he wants to take the credit. That's why I never liked the guy. I said, never fucking respected him. Gotti wants to make sure he's dead, see it for himself. And I'm like, what do you mean you want to see it for yourself? I says, he's dead. And he goes, well, I got to confirm it. I gotta bring it back to my father and make sure that he's dead.
Was Junior trying to keep Alite safe this time? Was this crime part of a bigger picture? Was Junior really involved? Was he even there?
You can't get into that world unless somebody's willing to open up and tell you what it was like, who they were, what they did. And I mean, that's the other thing that about John. I mean, we sat down for hours and hours and hours. And he never tried to sugarcoat anything. There was a level of honesty there that I haven't found in too many guys. There's certain other people I've talked to who have opened up that way, but most guys won't.
Those two gentlemen were related. Each of them had daughters, and they had daughters that wrote letters to the sentencing judge. The judge read the letters into evidence. They're very well written, very heartfelt letters about two daughters who tragically had to grow up without a father. After she read them, I asked to respond. The judge gave me a moment to respond. I was able to inform her that the only reason she was sentencing Mr. Alite and not the other two gentlemen is they were bad shots and they tried to kill him and missed, and then he got permission to retaliate. And the government in open court confirmed, in fact, that those two gentlemen had tried to kill Mr. Alite.
I knew Georgie Grasso, not well. He was a cokehead. He sold a little coke. I didn't see him every day, but I never heard him badmouth nobody. But maybe, who knows, after a few drinks, who knows, you know, I don't know the whole thing.
Phil, you're gonna turn around and look at me, and you're gonna say to me, give me the gun. And I'm gonna tell you no. And I'm gonna just point at myself. I'm doing it.
In February 2016, I had to cross Brooklyn again with John Alite. We had to finish the story of Eugene. As we were following the subway line back to Jamaica Avenue, I tried to make sense of his confessions.
Tell me about the importance of this spot here on this corner of 89th in Jamaica?
Well, I'll set it up for you, tell you exactly what happened. Back in those days, that where Chase Bank is, that used to be called the Circus Bar. That was one of my drug spots. This was this spot right here over my right shoulder. This was called Patty Wax. That was another drug spot of mine. On this corner was Kentucky Fried Chicken. These two guys I was telling you about earlier tried to kill me. They used to be friends of mine. I knew them since we were kids. And we had a dispute over the drug business, over one of them became a convicted rapist. And my opinion, he had to get killed after that.
Yeah.
He beat a girl, and with 5 guys, they raped her, shot the boyfriend, and we ordered him dead. I set up the murder for when I went to prison. I told him, when I'm in prison, I want to make sure you guys hit this guy. So this is where we set up the hit. There were 2 cars back here, and the victim was going inside the bar. And then you had 2 cars this way waiting for him, and we had 1 car this way. So there was no way he was getting out of this area. They pulled up, walked into the bar, and shot him several times in the back and in the head. My cousin, whose father was killed down here, Patsy, this is the end of the spectrum. His father was killed down the block. His son took somebody else's life here on my orders at this location. I believe it was about 96 when he gets killed. And his original hit was supposed to be on him at about 88. And that was the same time his partner was all his brother-in-law. I killed him. And it took us to catch up with this guy another 8 years.
8 years to, yeah.
But that hit wasn't going away.
Instead, Eugene went away for a while, leaving behind his drug spots, Alite, and his dead brother-in-law. In 1988, Alite became an enforcer for the Gambinos. At the same time, according to testimonies, Gotti Jr. became a made man. Everybody had to get something out of this deal, if there was a deal.
John, what is he saying to you, like when you were in the car there? What was he saying?
He's trying to tell me that he talked to Johnny and that he worked things out. And I didn't buy that bullshit because I know he's trying to make money off both of us. And I said to him, I said, what are you talking about? You work things out. No, I'm just luring him to sleep. He said, to let him think everything's okay and that we'll kill him later. Don't worry about it. You know, my father already said we can kill him, you know, because he already talked to his father about it. So I'm saying, well, we just fucking kill him now. What are we waiting for, luring him in? I says, you know, come on, man, you're making money with him. I says, with this bullshit fucking drug business you're doing with him. He's bringing home pennies, I'm bringing home big money. I says, you're gonna let this idiot talk to me like that? I says, I don't need you. I said, kill myself. He says, well, you ain't doing nothing without my father saying it's time to do it.
We'll never know exactly what happened here and how, but a similar description was given by Alite during his trial, his interviews, and also in his book. In 1995, it was said that Alite was trying to kill John Gotti Jr., the alleged dealmaker, but that hit never happened. The following year, John Gebert was gunned down by a member of Alite's crew. The story of Paddy Wax fits other testimonies, and there are similarities between the story of Eugene and the one of Johnny Gebert, Grosso's brother-in-law. During his trial, Alite said he did not order his people, whilst in prison, to kill John Gebert. But he did say it could have been like a nice gift if that ever occurred.
I mean, because I knew Johnny Gebert. We all knew he was with John Jr. at the time. He was a tough guy, but he didn't go around saying, like, I'm with the Gottis, you know. You don't talk like that, so.
On the way back to Manhattan with my collaborator, I had to discuss my encounters with John Alite. And the camera was still running.
Do you find him sincere?
Yes. I get the impression that he is being sincere to himself.
Okay.
So, the vibe you get, it's very hard not to believe him. The way he tells the stories, the intensity in which he tells his stories and tells the events, and the way he moves and the way he holds himself is like, okay, this guy was involved, he was there, he was in it. And you can see it in his eyes, I think. I mean, what do you think about the stories that he tells us?
We discussed Alite's motivation of killing Grosso and his brother-in-law. That was a dog-eat-dog reality. But what we were wondering the most was why Alite constantly mentions the Goddies. What is he getting out of these old stories? He's definitely exposing the mob. But should we believe his transformation? He also tries to justify his actions against John Gotti Jr., against whom he testified in the famous trial of 2009. And at that time, they became enemies.
There were a lot of heated verbal exchanges in the courtroom during breaks. The jury would be out and Mr. Alite would be on the stand and Mr. Gotti would be at the counsel table, and they were exchanging heated exchanges.
Once upon a time, Alite and Gotti Jr. were good fellas, inseparable young friends, but they transformed to highly feared gangsters. These two have long now been fighting each other on the streets, in the courtroom, on the virtual highway where the fight continues in chat rooms and all over social media. We had to revamp our questions again and ask Alite why he testified against John Gotti Jr.
The guy was a rat. The guy was a CI cooperator, confidential informant since 2005. So when someone tells me, you know, why would you cooperate against John Gotti Jr.? Because the guy was already cooperating. The guy was ratting 5 years earlier against me.
According to a document circulating online, John Gotti Jr. had a sit-down with the FBI, and when asked about that meeting, Gotti insists nothing came out of it, that no one was harmed or arrested. However, by the rules of the Cosa Nostra, made men cannot be seen with the authorities, and death is the punishment for breaking that rule.
And I refused to do what he was doing. I lost my family, my money. I went on the run. I stayed in Brazil penitentiaries for 2 years and some months in the worst conditions imaginable, not to be a John Gotti Jr. and to take the weak way out.
Do you think he planned to shoot you?
You know, I shot one of his friends, and he was supposed to be protected, and he did nothing about it. I beat up and I baseball batted, pistol whipped one of his uncle's brother-in-laws and son-in-laws, excuse me, and they did nothing about it. I robbed several of his guys. He did nothing about it. I knew, you know, you got to remember, I was his enforcer, the family's enforcer. So, yeah, I knew they had nobody. There was nobody that was capable of doing anything to me.
But do you think he sent somebody to kill you?
Nah, well, he tried. He tried to send the guy that I shot to come kill me afterwards. That's the same guy he's supposed to be protecting. So I took that hit as serious as I would take, you know, something ridiculous. He just wasn't capable. I don't know how to explain it past that. He's got a position, but yet he had no guys to do any kind of killing besides me and a couple other guys.
We followed the story of Gotti's retaliation and found the alleged shooter. Steve Newell never left the area and told us more about Alite, the Gottis, and the Italian mob today in Freefall. Other kind of mobs are taking their place, including the Albanians. As we speak, in Albania, Alite is perceived as someone that managed to get on the highest levels of Cosa Nostra and made a name for himself. In America, the Italian mafia isn't what it used to be, but Alite relentlessly keeps talking about it. He often is on TV, he's preparing a second book, and he's gathered his old friends and they're thinking about making TV shows about his horrible past. He's a celebrity. I know what you're thinking. He found a way to make money. And this could be a new racket. After all, he's just a gangster. Today, Alite hangs out with a different type of crowd, including young athletes like talented baseball player Joe Quinones, with whom he likes to train. Joe will probably become a huge success and a major league player, which is something Alite used to dream about in his younger years.
I talk about his dedication for troubled kids, but I also want kids that are talented or motivated or dedicated to stay off the street direction I took and go in the direction he's taking. And eventually, I think your dream will come true if you keep it up. It's my new crew.
A man is not only his past, but also his present and his future. If we want to know who he really is today, we need to dig into his dreams, because without them, he'd be trapped in the past. Is he? What do you think?
On May the 1st, a Serbian church in Manhattan went up in flames. The American press was looking for a motive, while some online Serbian media pointed to one man